Brilliant. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm super excited because we've managed to convince Rob to join us for today's session. Rob is, well, he's two things that I find really interesting. Firstly, he is, as far as we know, not just the top referrer for Morning Brew, but the top referrer for any newsletter referral program anywhere of all time, which is pretty impressive. We had a quick look on our end in our database, and we've got some people who are approaching your level, but I don't think anyone who's officially passed it. So you're still safe for now, at least. And you also then, after doing that, you went and set up your own newsletter referral program, and that has been going pretty well as well. So super excited to talk about, kind of what made you decide you wanted to make, what is it, 3,600 referrals?
I think, well, I was actually refreshing it before, and I think it's 3,863 at this point for Morning Brew. So
3,863 referrals of your own, and then kind of what you learned from that, and how that helped you basically set up your own really good newsletter referral program.
yeah. Well, should I kick it
Yeah,
off
so
then?
take it away. Yeah, please, let's go.
Sweet,
No time like the
sweet.
present.
So I have a little presentation to share. I'm going to share my screen, make lots of corny jokes. So we'll get into this thing, guys. If you don't mind, one thing I wanted to do, just as a way to address the elephant in the room right out of the gate, is does anybody notice anything when you were signing up for this event that maybe seemed a little weird or something that stood out? Um, one thing that my business partner Amanda, who pointed out, is that both Lewis and I have the most deceptive headshots in the world. We have grown our hair at least like 12 to 16 inches since the last time we updated our headshots. So if you guys notice anything a little bit, like, who are these people presenting? When I was on the landing page, it didn't look like these people would actually be joining live. We are the same people. We are not these. We're not just. We didn't just hijack these random photos off the internet. We just haven't updated our headshots since the pandemic has taken over. Um, but in all seriousness, Lewis kind of put together the title for this presentation. And one thing that you guys will kind of get to know about me is that I'm a copywriter. I love conversions. And the name of this presentation, I liked it a little bit. But Lewis, one thing I kind of noticed is, and I'd love for you guys to kind of score it. I wanted to try to kind of put a copywriting lens to this. So the standing title is "Turn Your Newsletter Subscribers into Super Sharers," and I'd love to have you guys kind of score that on a scale of 1 to 10. Where do we think this falls in terms of the excitement level, in terms of a headline? And do you guys think we could apply some copywriting juice to this to get it up a couple notches? Let me see some scores come in. Someone said 7. If you guys don't mind playing full out with me in chat, someone said I like it. 8. Another couple eights come through. Okay. So you guys like it. You guys like it pretty well. I said if I were a director spots copywriter, and I am, so and applying that to this lens, I said we could do a little bit better. We could turn up the notch a little bit. So I'm gonna try to tell me if this got get you guys a little bit more excited about this title. Inside, how I unlocked the referral keys, won a free trip to NYC, and became the #1 referrer in the world for a newsletter with 1.5 million subscribers, and then legally copied the same techniques to launch my own referral program and double my email list in 100 days. How do we deal with this one? 1 to 10, guys. Much better. People like to rewrite a little bit. Someone said, "Whoa." Very fun. But yeah, no, I just want to get you guys kind of worked up a little bit and excited about this because referrals, as Lewis kind of mentioned, is something that I am apparently the #1 person in the world at. But it is something that I've really kind of enjoyed the process of not only becoming someone who shares newsletters and is the #1 referrer, but also someone who's used the same techniques in my own stuff. But if you guys have never met me before, you're probably like, who is this Robert Allen character? Does he just write referral emails? Like, what is this about? So I just wanted to say a quick about me. I'm an email copy and conversion nerd. I've sold over $100 million of products and services online, which is a crazy big number. I do that alongside my business and life partner, Amanda Gamble, and she's amazing. She's in chat. She's playing full out. Been featured in places that you might recognize me. Some of you guys may know that me from a freelance copywriting summit and the Black Friday Summit, which are two summits with thousands of people we've created where we get people to come get excited about these things. I write a free daily marketing and copywriting newsletter. and I live in Boise, Idaho. And yes, I am the number one refer in the world for Morning Brew. And that's what you guys kind of wanted to talk about today. And so, what I wanted to kind of share just a little bit about is my journey to actually becoming the number one person in the world, because I kind of stumbled into this, and it's kind of a fun story. And yes, that is me with much shorter hair, uh, center left to you guys on the screen, wearing the morning blue suit there. So back in 2018, I actually discovered Morning Brew's newsletter, and I fell in love with their content. So I was actually writing copy for a financial company, and so one of the things we were really, we needed to do to really stay on trend and write really successful promotions was we needed to um, stay in tune with the news and be able to pivot on a dime. And what was recommended to all of us is to read a financial, like to read the Wall Street Journal every day. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, like, even when it was like a client that was paying me pretty good money, I was like, I cannot read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, all these things every single day and do my job and do all this stuff. And so I found this newsletter and I fell in love with it. And after a couple days of just kind of being subscribed to it, I noticed a little thing in the very bottom, and it was like, "Hey, you can refer some people and unlock some additional content." Or in at the very end of this tail end of this curve said, "You could actually get this sweater, which I'm actually wearing right now." I was like, one, I love this stuff, and I would love to recommend it to my coworkers. Two, I really kind of want to like get in this game and see if I could potentially get 100 referrals, which was what was it required to get this free sweater, because I love the content and everything like that. But I had this gigantic problem, and this is something that maybe a lot of your subscribers might have is like, one, I don't want to seem like I'm like, spamming this out to people. Two, I also don't have like thousands of people on my network. I don't even know if I could get 100 people to sign up for something like this. And so I started trying to think about other ways that I might be able to share it, because I shared it in my company work Slack channel, and I shared out the link to the newsletter, and I got like 12 people to sign up. So I thought I had exhausted the end of the curve. And then I actually went on to uh, try to see, where are communities of people hanging out? Where could I potentially share this and get something that goes potentially viral and gets me to, get 100 plus shares for this. So I ended up stumbling onto actually kind of hanging out in the ecosystem of Quora, because I noticed that this world was kind of, people would go in there, they would ask questions, they would want people to kind of tell stories, and they would wish that people could like make recommendations for stuff. So I noticed it was a community that if I started to create content in, I could potentially stand out. And so I had one answer on Quora go insanely viral, and it just like, I think it was like 180,000 views in the matter of a couple days. And I actually broke Morning Brew's referral system, because at the very bottom of the thing I said, "Hey, and if you guys are interested in signing up for, you know, how I stay in tune with financial news, you can check it out here, and this is my affiliate link or whatever, or not my referral link or whatever." And and the guy who designed the actual referral program sends me an email. He's like, "What are you doing? You've broken this system, and because we don't even have a way to consume this amount of referrals in a matter of hours." So I went from 12 referrals to 1,000 referrals in a matter of like a couple days, and I just basically stayed passively engaged on their newsletter. I just months go by. This answer still keeps picking up views and views and views, um, and getting lots of referrals. And eventually, they actually added another tier to this referral program. And after I'd already gotten the sweater, they added one. If you had over 1,000 referrals, they'd fly you up to NYC for a day and hang out with the team. So this is me actually getting to hang out with Morning Brews team, and actually got all connected with the team, and you know got a really cool way to take me that was their biggest super fan and make me a lifer, because I still am subscribed to the newsletter to this day, and I still love their content. And then ended up writing a blog post about that experience, and I think Lewis, you've kind of shared that around. So it's kind of insane the process that I went through to do that. But what I really loved was, getting to go up to Morning Brew's headquarters and meet everyone and get to talk to them and get inside their head, because the referral program was something that I was very interested in learning more about. And so I did actually confirm that I am number one back in 2018, that when I wrote this post. But when I met everyone on the team, I was like, I kind of felt like they were going to be thinking like, who is this crazy guy who just referred 3,800 people to their newsletter? It's like, I've only referred 3,800 people to this newsletter. It's not like I'm obsessed or anything. Um, and some people were like, you did all of this just for that sweatshirt? And maybe you guys think I'm a little crazy for going to the to the extent that I did. And feel free to type a one in chat if that is true for you. But for me, there's actually really two reasons why I wanted to do this. I'm a marketer and I kind of love this stuff. So thinking about how I could potentially get the inside the ecosystem of Morning Brew and get a bunch of referrals was very interesting to me. And then number two was that I also knew that I was going to create my own referral program someday, and I wanted to kind of reverse engineer the process and see why their referral program was so successful. Because one things that I learned when I went up there is they said, hey, you're definitely number one, but you're not the only one by far to participate in this program. Actually, referrals have been responsible for like 30 or 40% of our total growth in the newsletter in through years and years and years. And Morning Brew is like up to 3 million plus subscribers now, I think, at this point. So millions of people have literally come through this one pathway, and a lot of that is actually free traffic. And that's what I thought was really fascinating. And that's one of the reasons why I was very curious about it. So Lewis asked me to kind of deconstruct what I thought was, the driving forces behind why I became so obsessed with their content, and then how you could potentially steal a lot of this stuff to apply it to your own newsletter programs as well and your own referral programs. So I broke it down just to six things. And I think there was really six things that Morning Brew did perfectly well that I try to do in my own newsletter program. And I would recommend it to everyone who's doing it, because I think if you get these pieces right, you might have, you can activate those super fans. You can activate those people on your list that want to share your content, want to go out there, write a crazy blog post, want to share it with every single person they know, so that your list could reach, 20, 30, 40,000 plus people in a matter of days, just by activating some of these super fans on your list. So the first big one here is proper timing. And now this is one of the things that I think that a lot of newsletters I join to this day that actually have referral programs get wrong. And a lot of them, and maybe you guys agree with this, is they ask you, essentially to start sharing their content, and they have the referral thing already there within the same day that you join their email list. Now, this is something that I think was kind of underrated in the way that Morning Brew did it and the way that I try to do it with my newsletter. But you can't really be the guy who's like, nice to meet you. Will you please marry me on the first date? If you ask these new subscribers to share your content too early in the process, it actually creates this glazing effect where you're basically just like numb to the existence of this sharing factor in the newsletter. So one of the things that Morning Brew does is that when you first join their list, they don't actually even give you that referral thing, but then they let you know about it through a whole series. And I remember kind of seeing it kind of come into the email and get invited to actually participate in sharing these emails. And I was like, this is really cool, because I've now been a fan, and now this is when I want to share. I don't want to share something just the first time I experience it and develop that, like, blindness, because just putting a little referral thing in the bottom of your newsletter doesn't mean people are going to share it right away. And it definitely doesn't mean they're going to share it if they don't have a reason to share it, if they don't love your content just yet. And I think that's one thing that, if you can decide on a timing that actually makes a lot of sense for your newsletter, it actually makes a huge difference. So one of the things that I found, and obviously there's a launching phase to this referral thing, but one of the things that I found with introducing this to new subscribers is that I actually don't give it to everyone right away. I make it something that you earn. So you have to go through my full welcome series before you're actually even presented the opportunity to share out the newsletter. So if the average person who joins the email list comes on, they have 9 days before they're going to experience this. That's about how long my welcome series is, or when they binged my whole series of content. So when they've gone through all of the indoctrination emails that I have. So I have a way of sending the emails where if you click it, you can actually get access to the next email in this series. But you do not get access to my referral program just because you join my email list. You get access to the referral program when you earn it by getting to the end and being engaged with content. Because if people are not opening my emails after 9 days, I kick them off. And if they get to the end, they are invited to participate in this this experience. So it feels like something you do. So what we see is a massive uptick in participation right out of that first email that invites them to participate in the welcome series. And we're talking about super fans and we're talking about super users this whole time. The people who go through the path of click, 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 and they request my emails faster because, most welcome series, they deliver on a path of every 24 hours you get this. But there's a way of designing your welcome series where you can actually give people the opportunity to click and get your next email quicker. And those people who make it all the way to the end of my content in like 1 or 2 days are the biggest super shares. So I send them a separate total email to invite them to share this cool experience that they just binged. And it makes a huge difference in participation when it's something that they earn rather than something that you just put in the email sequence. So that's something I think that is very underrated in the process of doing this. And I would recommend everyone do that. So does that make sense to everyone? Hopefully it does. And kind of how, psychologically earning the right to participate in the referral program makes a huge difference. Um, the second big piece of it that I wanted to highlight is well crafted and cost effective referral rewards. Now, one of the things with my own referral program that I did is, I don't know if you guys run into this a lot, Lewis, with people thinking about designing a referral program. They're like, it's going to cost me so much money to ship all this stuff out, and I have to mail stickers and mail mugs and mail all this stuff. And one things I was like is, one, I want to see, what these referrals are worth to my business. So I want to keep track of that. And two, I would really love for the first couple of referrals in the process of people sharing to not really cost me a lot, to have a high perceived value to my audience, but not really cost me a lot to fulfill. Does that make sense? So with my own referral program, the first series of things, the first 3 rewards are completely digital. So you have to refer up to 15 people before I have a true hard cost of doing something. And this is something that I think that gives people and you want to think about what is specific and relevant to your audience. So my audience is freelance copywriters and people who are interested in learning more about marketing. So the first referral reward is behind the scenes of this really cool funnel I wrote that generated like $16 per subscriber. That doesn't matter to most people in the world. If I were to pitch that to people interested in health or keto, they would have no interest in this type of thing, but my audience eats it up and they're very interested in this type of content. And this is probably very underrated in terms of the selection of these things because now I'm able to, fulfill that first reward where people get, three referrals, see what those referrals are worth to my business and fulfill that digitally. And so it makes people, not really give up on the referral program right away. And one thing Morning Brew did is their first referral reward is actually to get, I think access at the time it was to get access to an additional newsletter on Sunday. So you got access to this private Facebook community and this, additional newsletter. So making that first reward something that is valuable to you as a business owner, referring 3 people is valuable to you. You just got two or three additional new contacts. But it's also, not very cost intensive. And I think this is one thing that a lot of referral programs could benefit from is not necessarily thinking about what is a tangible, high cost item that I can send people or, a gift card or something. What is something with high perceived value that you could send your audience that's going to really give you results quickly from the referral program without really costing you a lot out of the gate? So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And the next big piece here is to normalize the sharing source. Now, by this, I mean, one thing that I kind of did as I was looking at inside of my own SparkLoop is I launched a referral program. And then I wanted to kind of see, what are the primary ways that people are sharing these this newsletter out, and then how can I normalize sharing around that? Because you'll be able to see, basically the source like Facebook, um, SMS, where is the traffic source coming from? And then don't make people feel super weird about it because maybe type of one in chat if you guys have seen where somebody is clearly just being bribed or, they're just like they're just like plugging a newsletter. They sound like they're plugging something just to get something for free. And you're like, this is spammy. I don't want to see this. But whenever I was whenever I was launching my newsletter, as I was looking at the sources, and one, I could see that there was a decent traction amongst Slack and on LinkedIn. And then the biggest one for me personally was Facebook groups. So whenever I would tell people about my referral program, I would always kind of normalize this behavior and make people feel like this wasn't weird, like this is the primary way people are doing things, so that when they went to go and they share in the methods that were the most common to my newsletter, they would actually they would feel like this was the way to do it. So for me, look at that. It's Facebook by far, SMS, sending personalized Gmails, and then you want to try to sometimes seed people with that copy so that they are able to, share it in a way that doesn't feel spammy or anything like that. So hopefully that makes sense. Kind of thinking about your own readers and the places that they're sharing it. So if they're texting it out, if they're sharing on Facebook, you want to normalize that way whenever you mention the referral program, because you know you got to look at the ways that it's actually being shared. And in this case, it's not being shared very much on Reddit or Twitter. The primary ways was Facebook and SMS and Slack channels for my personal referral program. The next critical piece is you want to have that static placement once people are actually in your newsletter sequence, where if you're sending any type of daily or weekly email, just have that placement. But you also want to pump it, and by that I mean you want to really incentivize people to participate at different intervals. One thing that Morning Brew did really well was kind of go in and seed these like short giveaway periods where they actually would give away something super valuable over a short period of time, because you want to draw people's attention to this referral program. One thing that I find, at least maybe you guys see this in the user behavior, Lewis, but is that when it's static every day, it starts to become that part of the newsletter that people just ignore. But when you draw attention to it, it can provide massive spikes in engagement. So one thing I'll do sometimes is like I'll draw attention to the some of the bribes that I do. So here's an email. It's like about that top secret 346-page report. You could, and I tell people like what it is, and I say you could go buy this for $99, but that's not the way I recommend you do it, because you can actually get it for free if you just refer this out to 10 people, and here's how to do that, and here's how the super fans do that. So anytime that I do these like little short periods where I pump the referral program and I kind of just draw attention to it, it makes a big difference. And it doesn't have to be a special giveaway, just drawing attention to it to spotlight what's in that referral program, choosing out some of the items like I've done individually, piece by piece, each of the referral program rewards, and it makes a massive jump in engagement. Sometimes I get like 200-300 people in a day just start joining my list out of these referrals. And as people start to see other people sharing it, they then join in and kind of share it. So there's this like duplicative effect that kind of takes a hold. Um, the next thing is to really make sharing easy. And that's kind of where SparkLoop, as a tool like SparkLoop, comes into play. Because one thing I noticed about Morning Brew's thing, and theirs is all custom built, is that if sharing is hard, if you have to, think about how to craft the message, and you got to think about, before I actually rolled out an official referral program for my newsletter, I tried to incentivize people to share it with their friends via one-on-one email, and say, if you read this thing, screenshot me sharing it to a friend, and I'll send you this other thing as a bonus. And that works. It really does work. But the way to really make your referral program could take off and have a life of its own is to have something like a Spark Loop or a tool that makes this really easy. So I think that's kind of glossed over effect, but I guess some of you guys, you at least know about Spark Loop. So that is the one of the key pieces. Just make it super easy. The link should be there, and all the tracking should be the integration of the fulfillment of the bonuses people get. But yeah, and then the final piece of it, at least on this, when I was kind of deconstructing Morning Brews, is to plan for your super fans and to really build some content and stuff into the end of that curve. Because one thing that whenever you see, sometimes I'll join email lists and I'll see referral programs, and they'll have a gift for one referral, 3 referrals, and then 5 referrals. And it's like, you have people on your email list who will go way beyond that. So plan for your super fans because they will come in and they will gobble up all of them and they will make up for the people who only share one or two times tenfold. So I think every newsletter referral program, even if it's a stretch, should come up with a tier system where there's a 500 or 1,000 plus rewards tier because someone is going to take you up on it. I promise you, someone will. Someone like me for Morning Brew, where I have like 3,000 or something, but they actually have a couple people who have hit the 1,000 person tier because those super fans they will go take on a life of their own. So for my own newsletter, I have a tier where if people someone's going to take me up on this one day, I think if they send me 500 referrals, I will fly them out to Boise, and we're going to hang out for the weekend. We're going to talk copy and do all this stuff. And you know, when I launched it, I was like, that seems like a stretch because my newsletter is not as big as Morning Brew. It doesn't have millions of people, but I actually have people that are getting up to 100, pushing 200 referrals, and maybe one day they may actually hit that 500 person tier. But the thing that is, and the thing that I want to reiterate is that um, without the presence of seeing that 500, they would have stopped at 5 or 10 or 50. And so just having that last one out there is just that stretch goal. It makes a big difference, and just knowing that it exists. Because personally, for me, with Morning Brew, also, I totally did stop trying after 100 because I wasn't really pushing it any harder. I mean, but if they created a new tier for 10,000, I may actually give it one more push to do it again and to keep kind of shooting for another higher tier. But in deconstructing their newsletter, that's kind of what I see as being some of the key pieces that they did really well. That when I then integrated all of this into my own email list, I was able to actually double my list in um, 98 days, actually, just under 100 days, um, using all these strategies. And basically, SparkLoop was the only thing powering because I wasn't running any paid ads at the time. So, last thing I'll end on, and this is where I will kind of kick it open to you guys for questions, but none of this works without one thing. And I want to see if you guys can guess what it is. In chat, I'll give you guys just a second to guess because it's all hinges on this one thing. Someone said subscribers, quality content. Yes, that's the key. And some of the content that I get, some of the feedback I get from my readers is, dude, please stop. I need to get work done. These emails are too freaking awesome. You're so good at writing. I want to receive an email from you every hour. This one says, in the last 5 days, I've binged your work like the season of Stranger Things. What a great show, by the way. And I think that's a super underrated part of, Morning Brews referral program, but any referral program you want to be thinking about, you know, get those super fans, but you got to be thinking about how to hinge it on great content. So if any of you guys are interested in, learning more about copywriting and learning more how to write stuff that your readers are interested in, you could subscribe to my free email list at kingsofconversion.com, and you can learn behind the scenes of how I kind of write some of these things and work on your chops of writing better content, writing a little bit better. But if you integrate all these pieces together and you have content your readers love, you'll probably do really well with a referral program like Morning Brew built. And have some super fans out there like me activated on your list. So if you guys like this, I think Lewis has a little bit to say, but also we'll open it up to questions. You guys can ask me anything you would like on the subject. But yeah.
Some time to add in their own questions. We've got a couple marked in already, and if you have some, you can add them in, and we'll mark them as questions, and we'll go through as many as we can in the next sort of 10, 15-ish minutes or so. One of the things I was going to add in real quick, and I've got some examples that we can look into if anyone has any questions about like specific examples from other newsletters. Obviously, with us powering thousands and thousands of newsletter referral programs out there, we've seen a lot of stuff that works and a lot of stuff that doesn't, and I can pull up some screenshots. One of the things I think is a bit unintuitive, I guess, is if you have a newsletter, let's say you have 100,000 subscribers, for example, to keep kind of the math simple. Some people come into running the referral program and they think, well, half of my subscribers are going to go try and share, right? If I have good rewards. And it's actually the case if you look at the data that, like, on average, you're doing pretty okay if just 5% of your subscribers try and share. You're doing really, really well if 10% do it. And if you get to like 15% of your subscribers trying to make referrals, that is impressive. That is really something. So if you think about it, you have your entire audience, and then only maybe 5 to 15% of them are actually going to even try and make referrals. And of that 5 to 15%, the vast majority of them, like 95% of them, aren't going to manage to make more than like three, four, five referrals, right? They're going to make basically, they're going to try and share once on Twitter, for example, or they're going to post it in one place once, and that's everything, right? So you want as many of those people to do that as possible, obviously. But actually, a lot of the bulk of your referrals are going to come from the other 5 to 10% of the 5%, those super small ones. Who are those super sharers, right? And they're a mix of like your super fans. So you have those people who are just kind of like, like you're kind of very passionate about it and you're going to go and put in the work, right? You're going to go and write answers on Quora, or you're going to go and share it at your university, your college. You're going to post it in different Slack channels. You're going to, put it into places where people really want to sign up for it and put some work in to win and to support it. But you also have people who are super sharers in a very different way, who are maybe just people with a really large audience of their own. And, they have whatever it is, 100,000 Instagram followers, 100,000 Twitter followers, something like that. They have their own newsletter, maybe with 50,000 subscribers. And even if you only have a list of like 5,000 people, even, you're guaranteed to have at least one or two of those people on that email list. And you've got to have rewards or something that incentivizes them and makes it super easy for them to go, yeah, it is worth me sharing this with my audience as well, because I'm going to get something really cool out of it. So you have those two different kinds of super shares, which is something I think is a bit unintuitive, but it's super useful to know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. And then kind of inside of that is the gamification process of the rewards itself, because that's a whole other part of it is, once someone gets that first reward, how satisfying is it? And then two, does that really activate them to keep sharing even more? So I write some really fun copy in the delivery of that first reward and let people know, get super excited about what's coming. And then they consume that first piece of content and they get even more intrigued by what's to come, because most people, the vast, vast majority of people who participate in the referral program are not going to get, more than a 3 out of the first gate, because we share it with our friends, we share it in a company Slack channel, whatever it is, 3 to 5, whenever they get that first reward, how good does it feel to get it? Because that's when the gamification process really starts. And that's when I think it kind of takes off into a world of its own. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I
Should
see
we
some
should we do
questions.
some questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could do some of these questions. I pull. So someone
I've got,
said,
they're coming in quickly. Should we go from the bottom, or where should we go
I,
from?
I could start up at ISIS question. Wait, oh, there's actually more even above that. Is there a
Yeah.
way to just to look at just questions only, so I don't
Yeah,
miss
just
any?
up in there's a little 13 icon in the top right next to a
Oh,
question.
yes, that's
Click on
very
that and
helpful.
sequence the questions. Yeah. So if we start off at the bottom, um, which are the oldest questions, um, I don't know if we want to go into the iOS 15 changes. I think there's some really good stuff there if you go and read notanewsletter.com. Dan Shinsky's done a really good breakdown of how iOS 15 is going to change things. I don't think we're necessarily, unless Rob's been hiding this, necessarily experts on that. We've looked into it, but I would definitely just go and read Dan Shinsky's Not a Newsletter from, I think, from October. It had a really, really good breakdown of exactly what that's going to mean for you. I'd take a look at that. Mahmood asks, this is referring to when you were talking about optimizing for kind of where people are sharing in a good way. So he was asking, would you build out the channel that kind of only works, or that you see working best, and ignore the other channels?
I'm a huge believer in the idea of just double down on what seems to be working the most. So, like for me, when the data started to first come in, I was like, Facebook groups is standing out. People are also privately messaging this. So, like when people get that first confidence boost to say, okay, sharing a Facebook group is normal. Um, then I say, one of the things I do is like say, hey, all you have to do is text this out to 2 friends, text this out to three more people, put it in a group chat, put it in your company Slack channel. Seeing where those sources are is really valuable. And then just kind of letting people know that, like, you know, because it kind of you have the inside baseball, the stuff that they don't know. You're seeing the vast majority of users' data, and you can say, okay, go do the thing that the vast majority of people just like you do, and just keep doubling down on it. That's personally what I say. Not necessarily ignore those channels, just let them know that it's okay to do it. Just kind of normalizing that behavior.
Love it, love it. Yeah. Um, all I'd add to that is that you want to give people the option to share where they have a large audience and where they think their audience will hang out. So what we see working best is to give people the link to say, look, here are the people you should share this with. Here is your link. Copy and paste it in. But also underneath to give them not too many choices, but 2, 3, maybe 4 different choices of one to many kind of channels, right? So not the one-on-one email, because at best they're going to get one referral out of that. But give them a couple of choices if they don't know what to do that are just super easy, where it's literally just, well, if I click here, I'm going to share it, right? And you have to do some clever stuff around, like, make sure that the default message that they're going to share when they share on Facebook, for example, is something that actually looks kind of good and would excite someone to sign up, right? Not just, hey, I found this newsletter, go check it out, something like that. Yeah. Um, yeah, for sure. Should we move on?
Yep.
Justin asked. It was talking about the you talked about something which I think is really interesting. It's very insightful. Not many people, even with successful referral programs, realize this. Is that you can't just put the kind of the section in your newsletter and just leave it if you want to get really good results, especially if it's down at the bottom, because people A may never get there, and B, they kind of gloss over it after a while, right? So Justin was asking how often you kind of do that extra little pump to let people know that it's there. What I can say from the data that we have across a lot of the bigger referral programs out there is you can add in a little teaser at the top. You can mix up the location, and we recommend doing that, especially if you have a daily newsletter, so that throughout the week it's not always in the same place, not always the same reward image. That's super easy to change. But if you're going to do an extra little shout out or an extra little thing to bring in attention, what we see working really well is to do some kind of giveaway or some kind of slightly more like time limited option every 4 to 6 weeks. It kind of tends to be best. If you do it too often, um, people kind of it's too much for them, and they become desensitized to it. So you don't want to go like necessarily every week with something crazy, a different shout out, but every month or so is great. What do you
Yeah, I
think,
think
Rob?
that cadence work. I think that cadence works really well, and just depending on your business, if there's anything that drives you to have a lot of people come join your email list at once, kind of seasonally, that can be a reason to do it on a tighter time frame than that. But yeah, every 4, 6 to 8 weeks, that seems like to be a really good cadence to really get the results to spike up.
Brilliant. Yeah. Then Jason asks, he had a question about the normalizing the sharing bit. And he asked if we had any examples on how to encourage people to share without them feeling spammy. Rob, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I have a couple of examples here that I can share if that'd be useful. But Rob, do you have any thoughts on what you're doing to encourage that?
So what I've done in the past is just share examples of good versions of it, like just do a screenshot of someone posting something cool on Twitter or just like Facebook post that makes sense, and then um, pre-writing a little text that seems not super spammy is sometimes the best way to do it. But I also write to a lot of copywriters, so like they love to they love to just kind of make it their own. So my list is different in that respect.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. On that, I have a couple of examples here that I can share. So this one that I really love, and I think people should follow a lot more, is from James Clear's newsletter, the author of Atomic Habits. He's well into the millions of subscribers now. He's growing super quickly with his referral program, and I think one of the reasons that it works so well for him, even though he doesn't really have like a lot of rewards, it's not very heavily gamified. It's just he gives people something of value to them to share, right? So the format of his email allows him to have like quotes like this, for example, the 3 ideas from me, and he has a little share this on Twitter button. For example, Twitter is where his audience hangs out, and that's actually a referral link, and that works super well for him in like breaking it down in that way. Um, Other things we've seen work well is to have some sort of incentive for the person who's being referred, not just the person who's doing the referring. So if you're going to run a giveaway, maybe it's the person who makes the referral, but also one of their friends who they refer will get something. And this actually comes back to a slightly different question, which is just a bit further up, which was um, where are we? There is one
Jason.
other question. Yeah, so there's one other question here that was very similar about. Oh, here we go. So Doug asked as well, can you use referrals for non-newsletter content? So have the referral section in your newsletter, but refer people to, for example, an event or a workshop. And that, what I was going to point out, is actually a really good way of making it less spammy. Is if you create, for example, a lead magnet, a downloadable, a checklist, if you have an event, if you have an upcoming product launch, something like that, and you ask people to share that with their friends rather than just the newsletter, that tends to work super, super well. That's that. Yeah, that's something I would add in there as well, for sure. Cool. Should we move on to another question?
Yes. This one says, which tool do you use to verify that the emails from your referrals are legit? That's actually on SparkLoop's side, at least with my referral program. In the beginning, I'll be honest, I was catching some cheaters, and I fully accepted that there was like a fudge factor that was coming through. And then I got more stringent over time, because you guys actually rolled out a way to do it more, I think it was like easy security level, medium, and then hard. And then I just was like, forget it, I'm going to hard as possible. Because I did notice there was quite a few little people who would refer themselves for the first one, and I'd be like, no 3 email addresses getting in here. But you actually can set it up where my newsletter is not as big as Morning Brew or something like that, but you can set it up where you get the alerts from SparkLoop, and it's almost instantly easy to tell the cheaters when they come through, because it's like Dan at Dan G at demo.com, and then G Dan at demo.com joined your list. You're like, okay, well, Dan, you just referred yourself. But yeah, so that is a toggle button you can do depending on the amount of fudge factor that you kind of catch with the referral program. For me personally, in the beginning, I was just kind of curious to see, you know, if the cheaters come through, will they, if I call attention to it and I say, hey, I busted you, will they say anything? Because remember, my first referral reward is technically free to me, even though it's a very high value thing that I deliver. But I was kind of like, I was just kind of curious to see, were those super fans that they wanted the thing for free, would they go on to actually participate in the program in a meaningful way after they got the first one? And in fact, I actually see people do that. Even the people who would refer themselves to get the first one, they would be more legit to get the next one. So that's kind of my personal experience with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's an ongoing battle, right? It's not something that affects most people, and it's just built into SparkLoop, right? It's kind of what we do all day, every day, is working out if something is likely to be fraud or not, and trying to predict it and work it out automatically, and segment it. And you can be as stringent or as unstringent as you want, but you have everyone, from maybe someone like you, Rob, who is, the rewards are like high value, but not like high monetary value. And it's a relatively modestly sized list. Up to a couple of weeks ago, we had a newsletter with 1 million subscribers give away $10,000 in cash. And at that point, you've really got to be able, like, that's when you find out whether your referral tool has good anti-fraud or not, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So another question, Doug had another one about how how to step your referrals, which I guess what he's talking about is how to structure your referral program. I don't know, just because we're a bit short on time, if we want to go into this, but I did pop up the rewards playbook as something that you can grab and download in the bottom left of the screen. And in that we basically lay out the strategy that we see working best over thousands of referral programs, exactly step by step how to think through what Rob was talking about, that trigger reward for between 1 and 3 referrals, some more like gamifying rewards to get you kind of into the mood to, to start sharing more, and then the more valuable stuff for 20, 50, 100, and so on. And there are some examples in there as well, which are definitely worth looking at. So grab that. It's about, I don't know, 15, 16 pages, uh, pretty comprehensive, and it's, a pretty good overview of what works. Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to add anything onto that, Rob, but I don't want to take up all your day, so I'd love to talk more about like the specific stuff that isn't included in there. Um, yeah.
No, I think that cover. I think your playbook will probably do more than I did. Just make sure you incorporate those elements that we kind of talked about before.
Yeah, for sure. Also, the similar question about what rewards are most effective. Check out the rewards playbook. It's all in there, kind of on paper, and it takes you through some examples that will probably fit in exactly for your kind of newsletter. Because, like you mentioned, Rob, it is all just about your audience, right? About getting it right. It's super audience dependent for sure.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting question from Paul. Says, if only a certain percentage of the audience will refer, do you recommend launching a referral system at a certain point? For example, after hitting a number of subscribers.
Yeah,
Lewis, you
good
might have
question.
your own thoughts on this, but for me, when I first launched my referral program, my list was only, I think, 2,400 people. So very small, micro, in fact. Um, and that actually carried me through to past 4,000 subscribers and onward and upward from there. But I think at almost any level, it starts to make some bit of sense as long as it's not like, as long as you actually have a way of monetizing your list, because obviously a tool costs money and you're gonna have to fulfill some of this stuff. Um, for me personally, you can't do it too early because those super fans and kind of learning what people respond to and kind of seeing, which rewards are the most intriguing to people, that is super valuable almost at any subscriber level. And it's kind of interesting to see, you know, one thing that, is not necessarily always talked about with the referral program is that the people who participate in a referral program are not just your best subscribers, but they also stay almost forever. I don't know if you guys have done any data on this, Lewis, but I don't think I've actually had anyone who has referred, who has participated in the referral program, so they're considered an advocate of the brand. I don't ever think they've unsubscribed. I think I've had maybe like 3 people in the history of my email list, which is not normal because I send a daily email, and none of those people have unsubscribed because they are, they're invested in the brand, they're invested in the sharing process. They've got friends who are now talking about the newsletter. So I don't really think you can ever do it too early.
Yeah, no, it's a super interesting one. I go back and forth on this. We kind of change our policy on this all the time. There's there's the financial question of when it starts to make sense, right? Like when you can justify it for your newsletter and when you can justify the commitment of doing it. I think obviously at the very beginning, the number of referrals like you're going to get is going to be small just because your audience is small. So the absolute numbers are going to be small, and because of that, I've often, especially over the last kind of half a year or so, said, "Well, wait until you get to a couple of thousand subscribers." And I still think for most people that's probably the right approach, just so that they're not spending too much per referral in the very early days, and that they're doing some other stuff instead. That said, I've seen a string of people like yourself, like Brennan Dunn, like Greg Eisenberg, for example, with his new newsletter that just really took off, grew to I don't know, like 10,000 subscribers within like a month or something. Um, they all had SparkLoop pretty much from close to day one, and it worked really, really well. And the results they got in that first week weren't particularly impressive, but by normalizing the sharing and making that something that was built in from day one, it does seem to have had a really big impact long term. So now I'm kind of in the middle where I don't know. I think if you can do it from the beginning, if you can justify the cost, then it's worth it. But it's not the end of the world if you wait till you have like 2, 3, 4,000 subscribers, something like that. I would say from 10,000 subscribers and up, you're kind of silly if you're not doing a referral program in some format. But yeah, anything under there, it's kind of just kind of weigh the cost and the time that it will take, and how important it is for you to grow at the end of the day. Some newsletters are just more of a hobby. Not everything has to be a kind of a super optimized business. Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. Should we try and get through, how are we doing? We've still got a couple left. Should we try and get through two more? Can you stick around for that?
Yep. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good to stick around for as many as you want. So if you want to do 2, 3, we can tackle as many as you guys want. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's try and do two or three then. Brilliant. Do you want to pick one out that looks interesting to you from the ones we've got left?
Sure. So
While you're doing that, I can answer Doug's question where he says SparkLoop provides links for Facebook and Twitter. Our social media links coming for LinkedIn and email. Yeah, those are already there. You have like the top 7 or 8 most popular. So you can add in LinkedIn, you can add in email. A lot of people will add, kind of restrict to the 2 or 3 that they think are going to work best for them. But you can have inside of the email or on your referral hub, you can have links for, all of the most popular places that you can share for sure.
so some technical-ish questions about, this, like if you're putting it natively into the newsletter. Um, I depending on which tool you're using, it's actually really simple. It's just like a merge field, and you can just share that. Someone said that, asked that. Um,
Yeah.
Someone said, would you approach anything differently if you send out emails less often, such as weekly, versus a daily newsletter? So personally, I probably would approach it just a little bit differently because I would probably just tell you just to send more emails if that's an option, because I'm a big fan of email. Like I'm a big fan of increasing the volume anytime you can. I think you strengthen the relationship with your readers more. But I think the difference would be how you spotlight it and your plans to spotlight it. Because if you only got one shot a week versus like 7 days a week, that's totally different. So the last thing you would want is for that static, that blindness to that area of the newsletter to occur with a weekly newsletter. So what I would do differently in that situation is make that area of the newsletter changing placement in the newsletter itself. Um, little call out boxes throughout. I would do playful new creative down there, because if you pick up static to that, you've only got one shot a week. So you don't want that to occur. So that's probably how I would approach it a little differently if I had only weekly to do it instead of daily. Someone said, I have newsletters in 4 different unrelated brands. Is there any autoresponder that can manage 4 unrelated brands for 4 different customer groups in one dashboard in one account versus 4 separate email accounts? I don't think so. I don't think you could merge all those things together um, without that. So maybe one more question. I think I picked the most technical one ever to end on, so I don't want to end on the most technical question possible.
But
Uh,
what I was going to say is I'm in and out of all the different ESPs every day, obviously, at SparkLoop. Campaign Monitor or maybe MailChimp might be able to do that. Kind of, it always depends on the details, but one of those 2 platforms has a good chance of doing what you want.
um, Oh, this might be an interesting one. It says, "Do referral programs work for any industry? I run a service-based business, teach meditation, and then host in-person events. Would a referral program work if the newsletter is not an end-to-end product of the business?" I was thinking about that. A referral program for people who have already learned can share with their friends and don't yet meditate. Interesting. So I do think it would work. I think it would be an interesting take on a referral program, especially if you're not sending regular updates. But I think, as long as there is that incentive baked into sharing and participating in the program itself, not necessarily sharing the newsletter out, I think that you would probably see redemptions and people would be excited to actually do that.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. It's I mean, it's about sharing from the newsletter rather than sharing to the newsletter, right? As long as you're capturing an email address, that can be a valid referral. And we see people do this in e-commerce. We see them do it in the course business. We see them do it for events and for kind of workshop businesses. We've seen them do it with service-based businesses. Um, if you have an email list of people who like your stuff and would be happy to share it with their friends with a little nudge, then it's it's the kind of thing that could work for you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last one from Bjorn, which is
One
actually
more.
it's a really interesting question. It said, I noticed it, he's on my email list, so thank you for reading. And he noticed that I'm not promoting the referral program as much as before. He said, "Is that to avoid the glaze over effect, or do you have another strategy?" So this is actually a cool thing that SparkLoop has recently rolled out. So I switched email service providers like in the middle of the year from Mailchimp to Klaviyo. So I've been going through an integration process where I've switched uh, my now SparkLoop actually has the ability to integrate with Klaviyo, which I'm very excited about. But I've had some uh, joining the list pieces as a struggle at the moment. So if you're seeing it, it means that in the future it may start to get more appearances. But I was very excited that you guys rolled out that integration because I'm a big Klaviyo fan, big Klaviyo user. And so when I was leaving Mailchimp, I was like, no, am I kissing goodbye to my referral program? But no, you guys actually cover it there, so it's very cool.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Rob, if people do have any more questions, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, kingsofconversion.com. I think, Lewis, I think you might have posted a link in chat earlier. If you guys want to subscribe and check out my email list and kind of see how I work in referrals to my strategy, you can do that. And I talk a lot about copywriting and share some cool tips for you guys. So if you do want to check that out, you can subscribe there and you can hit me up anytime. I'm pretty responsive via email.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Rob, thank you again so much for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. It's been really interesting. I My favorite bit of this is that I wasn't quite sure what you were going to say about kind of the lessons learned part. So I knew most of the stuff, but I didn't know what you were going to say in the lessons learned. So I put together some backup slides just in case you didn't have much that you wanted to share there, or if I thought that we wanted to share a lot more. And what I found really interesting was that not only did I not have to share my slides at all for that, but you actually came up with 6 points, the same number of points as I did as well, completely independently. So something must be going right there. Sure.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I thought it was an insane coincidence. You're like, yeah, I have 6 points, and I was like, I have 6 points as well. This is we studied for totally different tests, but we were ready to take the same one.
Exactly. Well, awesome, Rob. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day, and hope to chat again soon. Thanks
Thanks,
everyone for
guys.
joining.